Hey guys, it's Bethany and welcome to the channel. Today we are doing another video on the road to self-discovery, and this one's going to be diving into the astrological signs. We're also going to be attempting to read my birth chart, which we'll get into a little bit later, which is insanely complicated. It's like I want to punish myself. And I've never really been like the biggest believer of astrological signs and them really applying to you. Of course, some of your horoscope is going to apply, like your day-to-day horoscope or maybe your yearly, because they're going to make them general enough that they apply to many different people. But I'm going to try and see how much of this actually applies to me today. And we're not going to get like full-on in-depth because we could be here for like 6 hours talking about just the basics. I am a Libra, that is my sun sign apparently, but I've heard about things like moon signs or rising signs, or they're sometimes called ascendant signs. So we're going to get into a little bit about what the difference between your sun, your moon, your rising sign is, and how that all kind of works out with your birth chart. I would also like to say I am definitely not an expert, obviously. As I just said, I've only spent probably a total of 8 hours my entire life researching this stuff, but I have tried to get a decent understanding, and if I have anything wrong, please tell me down in the comments because I just want to keep learning. I love to learn. Also, within the next week or two, we are going to be doing our next episode for Disney Revisited, which is The Reluctant Dragon, so stay tuned for that. And I'm also going to be attempting to whitewash my fireplace and organize my kitchen. So we'll have videos on that and we'll see how well I do. I haven't filmed them yet, but I'm going to try and film a couple before next week, which is Thanksgiving, and I have a lot of family coming, so I will be very busy, but I'm gonna try and get some of those filmed and edited and uploaded so that they'll be ready for it next week. Now, on to the world of the zodiac. So our first category is your sun sign, and that's arguably the most important one out of the three that we're gonna be looking at. And that is what dictates our outward emotions and our outward personality. Whereas our moon sign dictates our inner emotions and our mood. Of course, everyone goes just by their sun sign normally because you only really need your day and month that you were born to calculate it. But for the moon sign, it's a slight bit more complicated, and you really need your day, your month, and the year you were born, as well as the time you were born specifically, as well as the exact place you were born. And this all essentially dictates where each planet was at the time of your birth. So like I said, my sun sign is Libra because I was born on October 19th. And my moon sign is Cancer because I was born on October 19th, 1992 at 1:54 in the morning in somewhere in Oklahoma. I'm not gonna, you know, all 19 of you might try and track my parents' house down. Anyways, there are plenty of really easy moon sign calculators on the internet, so I'll link the one that I used down below. And I'll also put up what my birth chart looks like here. And your birth chart is also called your natal chart, or your astrological natal chart. And what that is essentially a snapshot or a screenshot of what the sky looked like the very moment you were born. That includes where the planets were on their trip around the sun. And of course it varies from each vantage point, so where you are on the earth at that point is going to give you a different view of the sky than if you were, say, I was in Oklahoma, say if you were in Antarctica, you're gonna have a very different looking birth chart even if we were born at the very same time and the very same day. And it's said that your birth chart can reveal all your strengths and your weaknesses. It can reveal the best timing for your most important life moves. And they say it can reveal your opportunities for your soul growth. Now, it would take a whole lot of practice to be able to read this whole thing correctly, but I think I figured some of it out. So here we go. Oh, also, I almost forgot. My rising or ascendant sign is Leo. And they say that your rising sign is the face that you first show the world whenever they first meet you, and your outward personality. I watched a video to get a lot of my understanding for what we're about to talk about, and I'll link that down in the description. It was by a channel called Astro Twins. And I gathered that by looking at your chart, you are essentially looking at three things. You are looking at the planets, like we talked about, and where they were in the sky or in the solar system at the time of your birth. You're also looking at the signs, which they say kind of ring the earth in a belt So they'll be moving like this, and whichever one is over you at the time is of course your sign. So Libra was over me at the time. And we're also looking at the houses, which are also kind of in a circle. They're not all equal parts, and that just depends on how close you are to the equator. So if you were at the equator, you're probably going to have more of an equal portion of your houses than I would, which would be some of them like this big and some of them that big. So it just depends on where you are on the earth. And your houses kind of take place in different settings of your life. So not so much different times of your life, but wherever, let's say house 4 is apparently more like your home life, different family relations, different things that you're going to be doing while making a home. That's where your result in house 4 is going to take place. So it's not necessarily like only happens whenever you are 2 years old. Every time you are in a certain situation, that's where that's going to apply. I also learned something new, that the signs are not actually based on the constellations anymore. They're based on seasons and times of the year, not so much the stars, even though they still use the constellations as the symbols for the signs. And then just looking at the natal chart itself, the outer ring are going to be those astrological signs that move kind of in a belt. The middle ring has the houses and the planets in there that move around and can be clustered in certain parts of your chart. And then the inner ring is how all those work together and can show us if 2 of those are working positively with one another or negatively with one another. But that's so complicated, like so complicated. We're not going to get anywhere near that today. So the sun, like we said, is going to be your main essence, and mine was sitting in Libra. However, it was also sitting in the 3rd house. Now, apparently the 3rd house has to do with your mind and thinking. It can also deal with your early education, your social situations, and how you deal with your siblings. The best I can work out is that apparently my sun being in the 3rd house means that my central purpose is to have relationships and communicate well. I should say that my Libra sun being in the 3rd house means that I want to communicate well, as Libra in themselves are the sign for relationships and communication. And I have never really looked into a lot of these secondary astrological signs, since I've always just considered myself a Libra. So I didn't know very much about Cancer, but just looking in that, since it is my moon sign, it says that the strengths for Cancer are that they're tenacious, highly emotional, and imaginative, and they're loyal, as well as sympathetic and persuasive. They're also a water sign and are typically felt with more feminine energy. And apparently my moon, or Cancer, was in the 12th house, which is the last one. There's 1 through 12. And that 12th house is ruled by ending. So it could be the end of your career, the end of a project, the end of your life. It could be coming to a close in just a portion of your life. It doesn't really have to mean death. And it also deals with more emotional matters. So that kind of works out with Cancer. And with Cancer being in the 12th house, this apparently means that I am extremely emotional. It also means I could be extra sensitive to a lot of things and hide my emotions inside of me and make a lot of my problems internal and not share that with the world. Interestingly, my Mars was also in Cancer in the 12th house. And your Mars is your desires and your motivation, so essentially what drives you. This one's a little bit easier to see where they kind of communicate with one another, in that since Mars is so energy driven, straightforward, and really kind of more in your face, and Cancer being more emotional, internal, feminine energy, you could see how those two probably wouldn't react very well. And apparently looking at just the difference between those two and how they clash, it can cause nervousness and irritability. And I'm sure that those two being in the 12th house together also intermix, but I'm just not sure. I couldn't quite figure that one out as well. So they all kind of intermingle with one another. And it would take like 6 million years to get through all of the planets and where they are and what all that means and how they interact with one another. But just like a quick brief run through, I'll tell you what the rest of my birth chart means. So apparently your Mercury is how you communicate and work with others. And my Mercury was in Scorpio in house 4. Your Venus is your love and attraction, just like the traditional Roman goddess. And that's essentially your love language, your beauty, your style, and what kind of home you would like to have. My Venus was also in Scorpio in house 4. And those planets, which include the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, and Venus, are apparently quicker, to make changes in our lives since they're so close to us and so close to the sun that they make shorter circles around the sun and can come around more often. Whereas the next ones we're about to talk about are the generational planets, which can come every 1 to 15 years in your life and can dictate more generations of people. This also apparently means they're more impactful on your life. Your Jupiter is how lucky and enthusiastic you are. Mine was also in Libra, and it was right in the middle between the 2nd and 3rd house. Your Saturn was your discipline and leadership skills, and mine was between the 6th and the 7th house in Aquarius. Uranus, or Uranus, however you want to say that, comes through every 7 years, so it's definitely more of a generational one. And at the time of my birth, it was in Capricorn and in the 5th and 6th house. This one shows how innovative, original, and rebellious you are. Neptune shows where you can be imaginative and how gullible you are about certain things. And mine was in Capricorn in the 6th house. Lastly, they do include Pluto still, even though he's just a little dwarf planet now. And Pluto shows power struggles or power dynamics, or even where you may have had abuse or troubles. Mine was in Scorpio and in house 4. In the video, they also said you could go through and look, for instance, how many times you had water signs pop up or air signs pop up, and that can give you more of an overall feel for how things are looking. I got mostly water signs, which are 6 out of the 14. Whereas I only have 2 in the fire category, so I'm probably least likely to identify with those qualities. I also had a higher number of planets in my 4th house, which can make it all that much more confusing as to how that's going to incorporate with one another and cooperate with all the other ones. And I'm sure at certain times that they cancel each other out, or that the different planets inside of just house 4 altogether will interact with one another in unique ways, but that's above my skill level at the moment. I also had several in the 5th and 6th houses, and the 5th house includes self-expression, drama, creativity, and romance. And the 6th house is more health and service, so how prone you are to scheduling, organization, health and fitness, as well as service to others. And it would take so much more time to figure out how all these work together. And obviously we don't have time for that today. But what I did take away is that maybe looking a little bit past your sun sign could reveal something else to you. Do I think that it's all really true and I should look in and find all the answers to my entire life in my birth chart? No. Just like with all our other personality tests, if you look in there and find something out about yourself in the testing process or in the research process, then that could be very beneficial. And looking at the results that they give you and determining whether you feel like you attach to that idea or feel like that could be true for you could reveal something about yourself that could help you grow and help give you more answers for how you want to live your life. But do I think everything's going to be given to you in what the sky looked like the night you were born? Probably not. But I definitely don't think it's quite as absurd as I did at first. So at least there's that. And from doing my research, apparently you can get everything from diet plans to health and fitness plans to fashion advice based off of your astrological sign. So theoretically, for a week, I could just go by what food Libras are supposed to eat and work out how Libras are supposed to eat and only dress how Libras are supposed to dress. So that might be interesting. Let me know if you are interested in that down in the comments. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you liked the video, please give it a like so more people can find us, and subscribe for future videos. Like I said, we are going to have several coming these next couple of weeks, and I've already got a few on the channel that you might be interested in. I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. Bye!